Let's bring in now Gordon Flake. He's the CEO of the Perth USAsia Centre. Welcome. Good to see you.
Happy to be here.
This travel ban seems to have taken at least the markets by surprise. 30-day ban between all European travellers, excluding the UK. This is a big deal.
It is, but it's also kind of par for the course. There's a certain level of vengefulness for Brexit, I think, in there. The fact that most European countries can get to the UK and still get over anyway. The fact that it hasn't done to the other countries yet tells you a little bit more about it. The thing that's more concerning about it is that it sends a message that this is a foreign problem and that we can protect the United States by putting up barriers. But seeing today with the NBA canceling the rest of the season, words that Tom Hanks is here, I think the average American is going to wake up and realizing that this is far more serious than they've been led to believe. 3 weeks ago, the president was saying it was a hoax. 2 weeks ago, he was saying that there was only 15 cases, it'd be down to 0. And so right now, what was intended to be an address assuring the American public, I don't think is likely to do so in the wave of other information that's coming down.
Because cases there are jumping quite significantly.
Absolutely.
And there's a big question mark about the testing processes in the US.
By my last count as of yesterday, Western Australia has tested more than the United States of America. We don't know for sure because they can't monitor tests in the same way. But whereas South Korea has tested at a rate of almost 4,000 people per million, the United States is testing at a rate of about 5 per million. And as a result, they don't know the scope. They're talking about 600 to 700 cases right now. There's a lot of estimates out there that are just by orders of magnitude larger than that because you don't know. And if you don't know, you can't begin the process of cracking down and slowing the spread or slowing the speed of the spread. So that's why it's quite concerning.
We know the US health system is very different to the one we have here in Australia. There was some money in the stimulus package announced today for testing, for other health measures. That really needed to happen, didn't it?
Because it needed to happen two months ago when we saw this coming. So the other countries, in some respects, the countries in Asia that have handled this the best, Taiwan is the gold star student. Korea, after some initial missteps, has been incredible in terms of how they've handled it. Singapore has been incredible. There's been a lot of countries who had experiences in the past and they were ready for it. The United States, candidly, doesn't have a healthcare system. They have a healthcare sector. It's not a unified system. It's bifurcated by country, by county, by state, by industry, by individual company. And as a result, you don't have one person, even including the president, that can speak for or move the system as a whole. And that's become clear even in the difficulties surrounding testing and authorization of testing and providing the testing materials and authorizing them, guaranteeing that they'll be accepted and used. So it's been a real issue.
Yeah, and when we look at some of the social isolation, social distancing going on in the US, we heard Donald Trump saying that aged care homes are going to need to stop non-essential visitors coming in. Also, well, the NBA, that's huge news as well. They've suspended the season there too. So it is something that's becoming very serious.
It is. On a personal level, just had a text this morning from my daughter letting me know that her university graduation in April has been canceled, and mercifully a phone call with my father just minutes ago where I convinced him not to go to an ear appointment in Phoenix, in the big city, to stay at home. So I think, again, we're hitting the point where the U.S. is finally realizing the seriousness of it, despite the narrative that is coming out of some quarters of the society. It's just 2 months too late.
And when it comes to the economic stimulus, we saw some money there for loans for small businesses, but it seems like, again, the markets had expected more of a boost would be announced.
The real issue is that 3 years ago, we goosed an already thriving economy with a $1 trillion tax cut. And so we don't really have an awful lot left in the quiver in terms of other arrows to fire in terms of the process. And so what has been announced thus far has been relatively small. I think what people are looking for is something quite broad and quite bold. And my guess is this won't be the last address we see from the president because they're not yet ahead of the crisis. They were constantly behind it. So you're going to have to see a much more robust response from the government, a government which doesn't have, again, the same capabilities it would have had 4 years ago.
And this is all coming in an election year. The Democrats still obviously in the race to become the Democrat to take on Donald Trump in November. Bernie Sanders saying overnight he's sticking around despite a poorer performance yesterday.
It's not really a surprise. I mean, Bernie Sanders candidly played the role of spoiler in 2016 as well, just his own personal ego and, again, not just his ego, but his passion for his particular subset of issues. He clearly miscalculated. He thought America was with him in 2016, and he thought it was with him in 2020. Right now, it's clear the Americans are with Joe Biden, at least on the Democratic Party side. And so the question really is, how much damage will he do between now and the general election? And I anticipate, with what seems to be in the coming weeks a series of really lopsided victories for Joe Biden, the pressure on him to kind of to join the broader effort to focus on Trump, not his own pet issues, I think will grow.
And how well placed is Joe Biden to take on Donald Trump?
I think extremely well in terms of what polling says. From the very beginning, Joe Biden was the single candidate that was most of a direct threat to Donald Trump, which is exactly why you saw the president commit impeachable acts to weaken him. The whole Ukraine, Burisma kind of scandals that led to his impeachment. Candidate, there are some questions about Joe Biden's age, about his preparedness for office that leave me pause for concern. What is really encouraging, however, is the fact that the Democratic Party seems to have learned the lesson from the Republicans' failure in 2016. Whereas, out of a field of some 16 candidates in 2016, the Republicans continued to fight amongst themselves until it was inevitable that Trump was the candidate. When it became clear right after the Nevada caucuses just less than a month ago that it was likely that with a divided moderate contingency that Bernie Sanders would be the nominee, the entire party kind of coalesced around Joe Biden. So you see now everyone, I think, except for two of the massive field of presidential candidates has now endorsed Joe Biden. So what you see is a party unified in a way that it has not been in a long time. And a month ago, we were talking about how completely fractured and dysfunctional it was. And so that's a positive sign. And
a month ago, we probably wouldn't have been thinking that coronavirus would play out as one of the top issues in a US election year. But now, we see this as a health crisis. We see it as an economic crisis. It could also be seen as a political crisis, depending on how it's handled by the US president.
There's no question that it already is. We're already there. The great irony is that we've got now three, if you assume Biden's still in there, Sanders is still in there, three candidates, all who are in the target demographic most at risk for the coronavirus. And so one of the things that's going to be really a challenge going forward is maintaining the health of our political leadership. We've already seen that play out in the last week with those Republican senators and congressmen who attended the CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Committee conference. So this is going to be an issue that I think extends beyond it. So again, it touched Tom Hanks, Mr. America, in terms of everybody's favorite dad or uncle and neighbor today. I saw a wonderful tweet today say the good thing that he's here in Australia with a world-class healthcare system, and hopefully he'll take that message back. So our thoughts are with him and his good wife.
Absolutely. Gordon Flake, thank you for your insights. Thank you so much for that.